Be honest. How often do you think about packaging? We all realize that it's carefully designed, mostly to attract us to buy the product. And of course, it protects the contents from damage, sometimes infuriatingly well. Packaging covers an enormous range of products, and for most of them, damage involves only the cost of replacement. Even with food, packaging-related damage is rarely serious enough to be life-threatening, although for some foods, in some circumstances, it can be. It's a different matter when the packaging is for healthcare products, because people's well-being and often life itself is at stake. Let's look further. So, what makes it different for the thousands of healthcare products which are made in compliance with the principles of CGMP, Current Good Manufacturing Practice? The critical factor is that people who are ill or injured are less able to withstand the additional trauma induced by medicines, devices, or equipment which are faulty or contaminated, degraded, are no longer sterile, or are damaged. Today, CGMP applies widely for products which are injected, taken orally, applied to body orifices, or used for other remedial or even cosmetic purposes. CGMP applies to the production of medical devices and equipment of all types, from contact lenses to administration equipment, wound dressings to orthopedic implants. Incidentally, the exacting CGMP principles apply whether the product is intended for human or veterinary application. All such products are licensed by regulatory bodies who then supervise their manufacture so that every single item reaches the patient to a quality that is precisely as specified and fit for its intended use. No less attention is paid to their packaging, which must meet 3 key criteria. First, that the product will reach the end user as it left the plant in perfect condition and must remain so for the duration of its shelf life. Second, that the package says exactly what the product is, how to use it, and provides other necessary information. And third, that it must do so with total and repeatable precision. These 3 key criteria are universal and apply to all packs, whether designed for dispensing in a pharmacy or in final form ready for administration. The package contains the product, which sounds a little obvious, but it also means that it must hold all the items that together make up the product. For instance, all the parts of a device required to administer the treatment. It may define the right quantity of tablets. The pack, container, or device may be adapted to make the preparation simple to use or to assist accurate dosage. Packaging must protect the product from external threats to its stability without itself imparting any damage to it. For example, it must not be made of materials which release chemicals or vapors that could react with the product and damage it. Alternatively, the stability of a product, a combination of its physical and chemical properties, may be affected by exposure to a whole number of threats. For instance, by coming directly into contact with water, or from the humidity in the air, it may crumble or disintegrate. Apart from physical damage, the active ingredients may well go off due to chemical reactions known as hydrolysis, the action of water on chemicals. Heat and light can cause active ingredients to break down or lose their activity. These effects need not necessarily be chemical in nature. Light and/or moisture, for example, can cause products to discolor, which could lead to concern or confusion by the patient or medical practitioner. Where the product is subject to terminal sterilization, then the packaging material must meet varied and appropriate criteria. For example, glass and closure materials must be resistant to the operating temperatures in steam autoclaves. For ethylene oxide sterilization, the package must be gas permeable, but not allow the entry of bacteria. And where irradiation is the sterilizing method, then the packaging must not discolor or disintegrate by the use of incorrect materials. The package must obviously protect the product from physical damage during transit from the plant or while in storage. Vibration, bumps, and other shocks may cause solid products to grind against each other or crumble, as well as dislodge and damage caps and tops, or allow fragile containers to break. It's a legal requirement that packaging must provide essential information about the product, starting with what it is, what form it's in, such as tablets, capsules, an injection, or any other medication. In addition, it must say how strong it is, who made it, its manufacturing batch number, the expiry date, or for how long it's safe to use. We may also need to know other things such as how much to take, how to take it, and how often. And that's not all. The package must advise if there are precautions to observe, such as incompatibility with other medical conditions or products, as well as awareness of possible side effects. All of which is a lot of information to print on a small carton. So, to ensure communication of all relevant information, inserts called patient information leaflets, or PILs, are used to convey this information. If these inserts are required, they then become a very important part of the package, and must be treated and regarded as a packing component, effectively a part of the product itself. Packaging materials divide into two categories. The first, called primary packaging materials, are the packages or containers that are in direct contact with the product, which include the main container, cap, closure, or strip or blister packing material. The product may be filled into its primary package as it's produced, as with ampoules, eye or ear drops. Or it may be stored in bulk, awaiting a separate packing process at a later time. Similarly, when the primary package is filled, it may be directly enclosed in the secondary package, as with blister-packed tablets or capsules. Alternatively, the primary packs may be stored in bulk, awaiting a further packing operation at a later time. The diversity of these operations illustrates the need for products to be clearly identified at all times, and to be well documented, so that everyone can identify instantly and easily the stage that a particular process has reached. The minimum information to be documented being the product type, strength, batch number, and status. The second category of packaging relates to the components which are used to enclose or to protect the primary package, and are known as secondary packaging materials or secondary packaging. This applies to bottles packed in cartons, which may include other items including dosage aids such as spoons or droppers, and leaflets. Secondary packs may themselves be further packed on using trays, shrink or stretch wrap film, or just into larger cartons, shippers, outers, or transit packs for handling large quantities. Working to CGMP means that every aspect of product manufacture is quality assured, which means that it is predetermined and written as standard operating procedures, the SOPs, to be followed at all times. Packaging materials, however, to all intents and purposes an integral part of the product, are often supplied by vendors who, of course, should themselves be subject to CGMP requirements. But mistakes do happen. We recently saw a consignment of containers opened to find a paint-encrusted glove nestling among them. Sometimes, unfortunately, they are less visible, which means that samples from every delivery of incoming packaging must be inspected for quality, including dimensions, that it's made from the correct materials, that it's been cleaned correctly, either before arrival or in-house, and that all pre-printing is included, readable, and accurate. How would you feel if you needed medication, opened a blister pack, and an earring fell out? Or you found a hair in a tablet bottle, or chewed gum in a bottle of medicine? However amusing this may seem, it has happened, which is why CGMP lays down guidelines for how people must behave and dress when handling or processing healthcare products. The diversity of packaging means that there can be no single way to interpret those guidelines. For example, Filling ampoules, the primary package, during aseptic or sterile manufacturing requires an altogether different standard of protection from people than when the sealed ampoules are being labelled and placed in their secondary packaging. But the basic principles are the same, whatever the process, starting with a high standard of personal hygiene and appearance, which calls for regular bathing or showering and hair washing. The need to wash your hands and nails on each entry to the workplace is universal, particularly after visiting the washroom. It's important to wear the appropriate clothing, and no less so that it's correctly fastened, and, just as important, to ensure that your ears and hair are properly tucked into your head covering rather than being used as a fashion statement. All these things are necessary to protect the integrity of the product. As a matter of principle, and for obvious reasons, it's good practice not to wear bulky earrings or rings while at work, although a wedding band is acceptable in most cases. When to wear gloves is a matter to be decided for each process at each plant, although, again, as a matter of principle, it's better to wear gloves than not. It may be that under some circumstances, the use of a disinfecting gel rubbed into the hands will provide adequate protection for the specific process. For obvious reasons, eating, chewing gum, drinking, and smoking are all forbidden in any CGMP-regulated area, and the packaging floor is certainly in that category. For equally obvious reasons, carrying personal medication into the packing area is also forbidden. Products being packed or awaiting packaging must always be segregated, even though it could be assumed that because the packaging carries the product's batch details, segregation is unnecessary. But consider the case where two similar-sized containers with visually similar labels come into close proximity. If one container crossed into the other product and was then put into that product's carton, the consequences could be catastrophic. It's a fact of life that up to 80% of all product recalls are caused by errors of packaging or labeling, which highlights the need for the utmost care and total and absolute control to be exercised when handling and using printed packaging materials. Before starting any new packaging operation, it's essential to ensure that all materials and components from the previous job have been removed, that all line and area cleaning has been completed and checked, that all clearances have been approved and authorized, and that all necessary paperwork has been issued for the next job. Only then should the materials and components previously checked by the quality department on delivery to the packing area be issued onto the line. Startup checks should then be carried out to confirm that the details of the new job are correct, that the line has been set up correctly, and that all machine settings and counts are as specified on the packing record. Special attention should be paid to checking the accuracy of variable information, such as batch numbers, and expiry dates to packaging components online. This is especially important when using cut labels, which are more prone to error and subject to special controls, or when the labels are overprinted offline. Checks must also be made to ensure that any electronic code readers, label counters, and similar devices are working correctly. Obviously, all containers should be intact, undamaged, clean and free from any extraneous contamination, and kept covered until such time as they're needed to be loaded onto the machine. When containers or packages are not labeled online as part of the filling process, the filled and sealed packs should be labeled as soon as possible after filling. If for any reason this isn't possible, then suitable procedures should be in place to stop any mix-ups or mislabeling from occurring. Online controls should be in place to check the general appearance of finished packages, whether the packages are complete, that the correct product and packaging materials are being used, that overprinted details are correctly and clearly readable, and that all line monitors, indicators and readers have worked correctly. Remember, samples taken away from the line should never be returned to it, but put safely into dedicated containers. Any product which has been involved in any unusual occurrence should only be reintroduced into the process after special inspection, investigation and approval by authorized personnel. Detailed records must be kept of such occurrences. At the end of the packing process, all bulk materials and packing components and rejects must be reconciled with the number of units produced. Any significant or unusual discrepancies must be fully investigated and satisfactorily accounted for before release. When packing is complete, any unused batch-coded packaging materials should be accounted for and destroyed, and the quantity and the fact of their destruction recorded. If any uncoded materials are allowed to be returned to stock, a documented procedure which includes confirmation that they are not in any way contaminated should be followed. Finished product must be held in quarantine until approved by the QC department and final release conditions have been satisfied. Finally, the machinery, equipment and packing area should be cleaned and any contamination or extraneous material removed following the batch clean-down procedure in readiness for the next product. Two types of document exist in the packaging environment. There are either those documents that tell us what to do, such as standard operating procedures, or those which record what we have done, the batch packing records, cleaning logs, and so on. Standard operating procedures, or SOPs, exist to explain to everyone at every level exactly how a specific task should be carried out, how to set up a machine, how to carry out startup or in-process checks, how to clean up at the end of the batch, day or week, and every other activity which is relevant to the process. Batch or packing records and other types of logs require a positive response, either to fill in information, to make a permanent record of the product we've used, what we have done to it, or that the correct batch number or expiry date has been used. They may be part of a permanent record of our working environment, production logs, housekeeping or cleaning records, who set up a particular machine or how they've done it, or even if an engineer has been required to make some adjustments or carry out repairs. They may require that you ask for something you have done to be checked and countersigned as a record to say that they agree with your actions, or maybe for someone else to ask you to check what they have done. Paperwork is an essential aspect of the quality system known as cGMP, and as such, it's an integral part of our everyday working lives. It's as natural a part of working in this responsible environment as is wearing the right clothes, taking lunch breaks, and remembering to wash your hands after visiting the washroom. Let's review the cGMP of packaging. People who are ill or injured mustn't be exposed to wrongly labelled or damaged products. This applies to any product used for the body's well-being, whether medicinal, remedial or cosmetic. Packaging must ensure that the product reaches the user fit for its intended use, containing all necessary information and instructions, and must do so with repeatable precision. Packaging protects the product from physical damage and exposure to chemical or other degradation. Information such as the nature and quantity of the contents and how to use it may be printed on the package or on a separate leaflet. All products must contain the manufacturing batch number and, where appropriate, the expiry date. Primary packaging is that which is in direct contact with the product. Secondary packaging is anything else into which the primary product is placed. All incoming packaging materials supplied by vendors must be checked for suitability. People working in the packaging area must observe appropriate hygiene standards, wear the correct clothing, wear only approved jewelry, and follow acceptable behavior by not eating and drinking or smoking, and not taking their own medication into the production area. Products waiting to be packed must be segregated. 80% of all product recall is due to packaging and labeling errors, so all printing and labeling operations must be checked. Machine settings, counters, weighers, and other devices must be checked for correct working. Packaging equipment must always be cleaned between products. Samples should never be returned to the line. Finished products should be held in quarantine until released. Documentation such as SOPs telling us what to do should always be followed in detail. Documentation recording what has been done, what has been used, when and by whom should always be completed correctly. Remember, doing the job correctly and then completing the documentation are both essential parts of the packaging quality system that ensure the well-being of the end user. After all, isn't the correct packaging of medicines important to you?